Imagine a young company, a bold idea sparking in the mind of its founder, desperate for fuel. It needs capital, vast sums to build factories, hire brilliant minds, or conquer new markets. The easiest way to raise money seems obvious: selling pieces of ownership, shares of common stock. It's a straightforward transaction, a slice of the pie for an infusion of cash. But often, this simple solution came with complex dilemmas. For the founder, every share sold meant a little less control, a little more dilution of their original vision. They worried about losing the reins, watching their dreams slowly slip through their fingers as new investors piled in. And for the investors, especially those taking a huge leap of faith into an unproven venture, common stock felt like a gamble. Sure, they could win big, but if things went south, they were last in line, sharing in the misery with everyone else. This tension, this delicate balancing act between a company's need for capital and the diverse appetitions of those providing it, drove a quiet revolution in the world of finance. It wasn't a sudden invention, but a slow, pragmatic evolution, born from necessity and innovation. Companies needed a way to attract sophisticated investors without giving away the entire farm, and investors needed better protection, a little more certainty when facing high risks. Consider the early days of industrialization, particularly the railroad boom. These were ventures that demanded colossal upfront investments, building tracks across vast distances, acquiring expensive locomotives. Common stock alone often wasn't enough to entice the cautious capital required. Investors wanted something more reliable, a class of ownership that promised a steadier return, a sort of financial velvet rope. This demand led to the creation of what became known as preferred shares. They weren't just common stock dressed up differently. They represented a fundamental reimagining of how ownership could be structured, allowing companies to tailor their financing to specific situations and investor appetites. Think of it like offering different classes of seats on an airplane, each with its own perks and pricing. The core idea was simple yet profound: give certain shareholders a preference over others. This preference typically manifested in two crucial ways. First, preferred shareholders would receive dividends before common shareholders. This often meant a fixed dividend payment, offering a predictable income stream, much like an interest payment on a bond. For investors, this was a comforting promise in a world of uncertainty. Second, and perhaps even more critically, in the event of a company's liquidation, preferred shareholders stood ahead of common shareholders in line to retrieve their investment. If the company went bankrupt and assets were sold off, those with preferred shares would get their money back before common shareholders saw a single cent. This offered a vital layer of downside protection. This wasn't about favoring one group over another for no reason. It was about solving real-world problems. For a fledgling startup, perhaps a utility company building essential infrastructure, attracting capital meant appealing to investors who sought stability. Common stock, with its unpredictable returns and high risk, just wasn't cutting it. Preferred shares provided that bridge, offering a safer entry point. Conversely, for the company, issuing preferred shares often meant they could raise capital without diluting the voting power of existing common shareholders. Preferred shares frequently come with limited or no voting rights. This was a massive advantage for founders and early investors who wanted to maintain control over the company's direction while still bringing in necessary funds. It allowed them to protect their vision. Over time, preferred shares evolved, becoming a versatile tool with many variations. Some preferred shares are cumulative, meaning if a dividend payment is missed, it accrues and must be paid in the future before any common dividends can be issued. Others are non-cumulative, meaning a missed payment is simply lost. Each feature was designed to meet a specific financial engineering need. Another powerful innovation was the concept of convertibility. Convertible preferred shares give investors the option to convert their preferred shares into common shares at a predetermined ratio. This feature became particularly popular in the venture capital world. It allowed early-stage investors to enjoy the safety net of preferred shares with their liquidation preference and dividends, while also retaining the upside potential of converting to common stock if the company soared. Imagine a venture capitalist investing in a promising but risky tech startup. They want protection if the company merely limps along or fails. But they also want to participate fully in the massive gains if the company becomes the next industry giant. Convertible preferred stock perfectly addresses this duality. It's like having a reliable parachute that can also transform into a jetpack. The rise of preferred shares isn't just a footnote in financial history. It's a testament to human ingenuity in adapting financial instruments to meet complex economic realities. It reflects the continuous struggle to allocate risk and reward in ways that incentivize investment while allowing entrepreneurs to pursue ambitious goals. It's about finding equilibrium in a world of competing interests. In many ways, preferred shares are the unsung heroes of capital formation. They facilitate growth, bridge gaps, and provide pathways for investment that common stock alone could never manage. They allow for nuanced financing strategies, enabling companies to attract different types of investors with varying risk tolerances and return expectations. Without them, countless innovative ventures might never have secured the funding they needed to leave the drawing board. Today, preferred stock remains an indispensable part of corporate finance, from massive public companies using them to raise capital from institutional investors, to the smallest startups securing their initial funding rounds from angel investors and venture capitalists. It's a testament to the enduring power of a concept born from simple need, growing into a sophisticated mechanism that continues to shape our economic landscape. It reminds us that the financial markets aren't static. They are dynamic ecosystems constantly evolving, driven by practical challenges and the clever minds that seek to overcome them. Preferred shares are not just a type of security. They are a financial compromise, a sophisticated handshake between ambition and caution, enabling the audacious projects that drive progress and shape our future.